Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Bookish Road Trip Author Take the Wheel. I am Hope Gibbs, and today we are joined by the fantastic author who has taken over our website this week on Facebook. He has had some of the most beautiful and thought-provoking posts. It's been a magical week, and I'm so excited to introduce you guys to Robert Gwaltney, who is the author of The Cicada Tree. Hello, Robert.
Hi, Hope. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an amazing week having the opportunity to take the wheel with Bookish Road Trip.
And we are so lucky to have you because you are one busy fellow. Because did you just present at a writers conference probably like 30 minutes ago?
Yeah, I'm actually in Clarksville, Tennessee. I'm in a hotel room. That's why I have these odd looking drapes behind me. So, yeah, I'm actually at a writers conference presenting this week.
I love it. You are the first author that I have actually been in the same time zone with because most of them have been either Eastern or Pacific. And I haven't had one author in my time zone or in my state. So you're only about, I think you're about 60 minutes from me right now.
Oh, we're close. Well, I'm waving to you.
Well, before we get started, I want to give our audience a little bit about your background. So, a graduate of Florida State University, Robert presently resides in Atlanta, Georgia, with his partner. By day, he serves as vice president of Easter Seals North Georgia, a nonprofit organization that strengthens children and their families at the most critical time in their development. Through his nonprofit work, he is a champion for early childhood literacy. In all the hours in between, he writes. Raised alongside three feral younger brothers in the rash inducing subtropical climate of Cairo, Georgia, he is a lifelong resident of the South, a circumstance, no doubt, leaving a mark upon his voice as a writer. His novel, The Cicada Tree, is Southern fiction at its best. Now, if you have a question or a comment for Robert, we'd love to hear from you. Just sometimes we can't always see who we're talking to, so include your names. And we've already got several people. Cheers to the Central Time Zone. Amen to that. And we've also got Michelle here. Thank you, Michelle, for joining us. So, Robert, can you give us a synopsis of The Cicada Tree for those who haven't been lucky enough to read it?
Sure. So, the summer of 1956, Annalise Newell, a whiskey drinking piano prodigy, encounters the wealthy Mayfield family, a family possessing a supernatural beauty that others refer to as that Mayfield shine. It's this initial meeting with the Mayfields that stirs obsession with Annalise, really taking her down this dark path of filled with dangerous games and manipulation, all of it culminating in a cataclysmic plague of cicadas.
It's a fantastic book, and I'm a Southern writer. I've lived in the South my whole life, and what I love about your writing is not only is it beautiful and complex and very detailed, but it's very relatable. It's a great book.
Thank you.
So let's talk about this 11-year-old girl. I mean, you had me at whiskey drinking. I think, what did you say? Whiskey drinking, piano prodigy. I love her. So tell me a little bit about her and how did you come up with her as your protagonist?
Annalise Newell is an 11-year-old girl, and I think that of all the characters within the book, I think I relate to her the most. The summer of 1956 is the summer that she first encounters the Mayfield family, but it's also the summer that she kills her daddy with a prayer, and that she tastes and sees music for the very first time. So a lot happens to young Annalise within the year 1956, the summer that she turned 11. And so Annalise came to me through the back door, really. I actually was writing another novel that was going to take place in the 1970s, and the protagonist was going to be an 11-year-old boy.
Oh.
And his mother was Annalise Newell Darlington. And she was so fascinating to me. About 3 or 4 chapters in, she was making these really interesting and awful parenting choices. And I began to ask her, what must you have been like as a girl to make you like this as a mother? And that took me back. That took me from the 1970s to 1956, and I began to tell the story of Annalise Newell, the summer that she was 11.
And she is fascinating. I mean, because she's She's got so many layers, but she also has some supporting characters. And one of my favorite was Etta Mae.
Hmm.
Could you tell us a little bit about her?
Sure. Etta Mae is a 10-year-old girl. She is a young black girl, and like Annalise is musically gifted. She possesses a voice. If it were operatically classified, she would be called a coloratura soprano. And Annalise suspects that Etta Mae is able to impact people's emotions with her voice, and that she's able to alter the natural world around them. Something that Annalise at some point in the book thinks that Etta Mae might be using against her.
Yes. And then you also have a very interesting character, another young girl named Marissa. Can you tell us a little bit about little Miss Marissa?
So she is the 11-year-old daughter of the Mayfields, and she is a lovely girl. She attends a private school outside of Providence, Georgia. There are circumstances that occur within which she's folded into the public school, and Annalise becomes obsessed with her. And Marlissa is an interesting and complex character. She's not extremely likable, and you have a sense by the end of the book why she is the way that she is. But she, like the rest of the Mayfield family, possesses this beauty that is stupefying in many ways, and Annalise is so drawn to that. And more than anything, she wants to be close to Marlissa.
Well, let's talk about her mother. Can you give us a little bit of a background? Because when we meet her, Annalise has a very interesting encounter with Cordelia.
Yes. So Annalise's mother, Grace Newell, as a part-time gig, cleans houses, and she just so happens on the weekends to go out and provide supports to the Mayfield home, which is called Mistletoe. And the Mayfields are not supposed to be there on this particular day. The first time ever that Grace Newell takes her daughter along with her, so they're not expecting the family to be there. They are. And Annalise is walking through the home, and she hears piano music. The first time that she encounters Cordelia Mayfield's back is turned to her in this gorgeous room, and she's playing a black grand piano. And it's the first time that she meets Cordelia Mayfield, and there is this violent exchange in this first meeting. And it's this violent occurrence, really, that sets something off inside Annalise, something close to obsession.
Yes, it does. And let's talk about a little bit about mistletoe. And is this based on some place you've seen, or is this completely a figment of your imagination? Because I felt like you described it so well, I can picture it in my mind.
There's actually a plantation named Mistletoe that's close to where I grew up in Cairo, Georgia, but it's not at all anything like the mistletoe plantation that I describe in the book. I have a slight family connection to mistletoe in that my Gwaltney family owned a farm, a very small farm that adjoined Mistletoe, and decades ago the owners of Mistletoe purchased that Gwaltney farm and folded it into Mistletoe. So it was that money that my great grandparents earned from the sale of the farm that allowed them to purchase their new farm in Grady County, where my mom and dad are today.
I love that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this cover. It catches your eye. I don't know if you have a cover or a copy with you, but those of you who are watching, it is beautiful. It's a bright yellow cover with a cicada. How much input did you have with your publisher on what you wanted on your cover?
So I was after I knew that I had the publishing agreement, the book was going to make its way out into the world. One of the greatest fears that I had was that I would get an ugly cover.
Yeah.
In the contract, it was stated that would have input. So I took matters into my own hands. And since they said that I could present images and pitch ideas, I actually worked with a professional cover designer to render 3 options that I presented to the publisher, because I was just so panicked that I wouldn't have the image that I wanted. And fortunately, the publisher was very open to those ideas. And of the 3 choices, the yellow gold version is the version that was selected. So I was very fortunate. Oftentimes authors they may or may not have input into their cover. That's I think one of the perks of working with the smaller press. They're willing to take greater artistic chances, and they were open to my vision as a writer. So I felt very fortunate that, well, for the most part, I was able to have a great deal of input into the final design of the Cicada Tree cover.
That's wonderful. And we have Facebook users who are agreeing. Gail says, love the cover. So interesting to listen to you, Robert. We have another one, love this cover. We've got Donna joining us from Connecticut. And then we also have a Facebook user who I was getting ready to ask this question. Thank you. Who is your publisher?
Moonshine Cove Publishing. They're in Abbeville, South Carolina.
Okay. Are they more of a Southern based kind of books?
They are, well, so actually a little bit of everything. They do feature Southern voices, but I've seen a little bit of everything in their catalog.
So let's go back to the book about the cicada tree. What possessed you? I know you said that you were writing about an older Annalise, but is there anything else that really spoke to you, that why you wrote this particular story?
You know, it's interesting. I think that when I was writing that first iteration of Annalise when she was an adult, it was when I was writing that book. There was a certain chapter where she's in this lovely home, a home that she's from humble means, and she's married into the Darlington family, who has greater means than the Newell family, and she feels as if she doesn't belong. And she's walking down the staircase, and there are these pictures of all of the Darlingtons that have come before. And it was in that moment, I wasn't quite sure for a long time who I was as a writer, who I was going to be. And I initially thought, well, maybe I'll be a humorous writer. Of course, I can sustain humor in fits and starts. But it was when I was writing that particular scene that I thought, gosh, I think this is who I am as a writer. This is my voice. It's a bit dark. It's a bit lyrical. And everything seemed to come to life from that point forward. And then I put that book aside and I started to write the Cicada Tree. I think that Annalise came to me, her voice came to me so clearly. I had a strong vision early on of what the arc of the plot would be, but I didn't know everything. About 3 or 4 chapters in is when the elements of magical realism came to me. And again, another layer to who I am currently as a writer. So I think that when I set out to write the Cicada Tree, I wasn't conscious of the market and what I felt would be viable from a sales perspective. I just wrote all of the things that I loved and that I felt that that I could incorporate and sustain over a long period of time when I committed to writing this book. So, so to go around my elbow to answer your question, I think that what inspired me within the Cicada Tree was just all of my interests, music, because there's a huge musical underpinning to the novel. Fashion, I was able to express my love of fashion by dressing Cordelia Mayfield and Christian Dior.
He was fabulously dressed.
Fabulously dressed, and everything that I described her wearing in the book is based on an actual Christian Dior design. So I think really I just went for it. I thought, what is the book that I've been looking for my whole life and haven't been able to find? I'll try to write that book. And that's how I approached it.
Do you think you're going to revisit the older Annalise in another book?
I don't know. I think that, I've contemplated it and I have a sense of what perhaps might happen next. But I'm taking a break and working on a different story that's quite a bit darker than the Cicada Tree, but it's told from the perspective of a 14-year-old girl who lives on the marsh with her mother. But perhaps I will revisit Annalise. Those characters will always be with me. I'm so fond of them. I think that's one of the things that we mourn as writers at the end of the book, is having to say goodbye to those characters.
That is very hard. And I personally would like for you to write that book because I want more Annalise. I want to see where she goes in life. What genre would you classify this? I know it's hard to put your book in a genre. Is it Southern fiction, Gothic? Where do you see it?
So I describe the Cicada Tree, of course, as being a work of Southern fiction with Southern Gothic tendencies and elements of magical realism. It does cross genre a bit. I don't believe that I probably meet the textbook definition of Southern Gothic, but so that's why I say that it has tendencies. In the book world, people want to put you in a tidy little
Mhm.
category because it's really easy. It's much easier to sell and to market. But I do think that the Cicada Tree, at its heart and soul, is Southern, but it does cross genre.
And how do you think living and growing up in the South, we're both Southerners, born and, raised, we've lived here all of our life. How do you think that influenced you as a writer?
Well, living in the South, as you stated in the bio, it's I've lived my entire life in the South, so it's really all that I know. I think that it inspires, of course, my unique frame of reference, the way that I view the world, the pacing of life, the beauty of the place, and the language of the place, and tradition, which are things that are all very important to me. So I think that ultimately, and who knows what sort of writer, what Southern writer I might be 5 years from now. One of the things that I've learned is that we're constantly, if we're lucky, evolving. And the writer that we are yesterday hopefully isn't the writer that we're going to be tomorrow. So I'm curious about what that journey is going to look like, and how the South will continue to influence my writing. But I can't imagine at this point in time, and I'll never say never, but I can't imagine not writing a book that's not within the realm of Southern fiction.
Yeah, I love to write about the South personally myself. Mary Sheriff said, saying goodbye when finished writing was way harder than she imagined. I get that. It's hard to say goodbye to these characters. So let's talk about one more big character of this book, or at least an element, the cicadas. So how did you come up with how did they flow into the story? How did you come up with that? Because it was
How do they
brilliant.
fly into the story?
How did they fly into the story or come up from the ground, basically?
Right, they do actually.
They do.
So, the, really, that whole event is inspired by a summer of I think my fourth grade year, where we were just covered up with the brood of cicadas, and I've not experienced anything like that particular brood of cicadas that summer ever again. They were everywhere, fence posts and pine trees, and just the sound, and it really ignited my imagination. I had these. Images, these horrific images of what the world might be like if the cicadas were to overtake it. When writing the cicada tree, I really created a sort of southern mythology around them, where they're nymphs living underground for all of these years, listening to all the secrets that they hear from above, and they're eating these secrets until the point at which they're so full they have there's nothing they can do but claw their way to the surface and burst open and sing out what they know. So in the back of my mind, when I was writing the book, I that was sort of the mythological underpinning of the cicada, and of course there are many meanings, transformation being one of them, and a theme that I explore in the book.
And you do it beautifully. We have Patricia from Canada. Hello, Patricia. Thank you for joining us. And she says, great to see you here, Robert. You know, I adore your book.
Thank you, Patricia.
And speaking of this book, so here at Bookish Road Trip, we are doing bingo. It's our reading challenge for 2023. And I have to say, this book will check off a box if you read it, which I did, and I couldn't get enough of it. And it would be perfect for the hidden in time. So I'm not going to give away any more than that. But if you are playing along with our bingo challenge, you've got a box checked off when you read this. So let's talk a little bit, let's shift gears about you as a writer. So the thing I love about Bookish Road Trip is not only do we have 5,000 plus of, enthusiastic readers and published authors, but we also have some inspiring writers who are thinking about, pulling out that laptop or, that notebook. And can you give a little bit about your journey as a writer and your road to publication, from the time that you had the idea to the time that you held that beautiful book in your hand?
Yeah, I think that the 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 actual thought of writing a book always seemed a bit arrogant to me, and I never would proclaim to anyone that, oh, I'm a writer. It just seemed like such an arrogant thing to say out loud. So it's something that I only share with those individuals in my community of writers. I'm a member of the Atlanta Writers Club. Um, I joined a critique group. So I think from about 2003 is when I got really serious about writing. I thought to myself, if I don't start now, it's never going to happen. So I would say around 2010, when I felt like I found my literary voice, I just began to write. And of course, I'd hoped one day that I would be published. And you just never know. There's so many gifted writers in the world and so many beautiful works of literature. Uh, and everyone's just vying just for a little bit of attention. So I'd hoped, and I felt in my heart that the planets would line in such a way that one day the book, when it was finished, would make its way out into the world. So I'm an individual who I sort of envision something happening. I try to imagine what I would do or say if someone loved the book enough to send me a publishing contract. So I sort of daydreamed my way to it, I suppose, in some ways. But the writing Cicada Tree was a bit like playing in the creative sandbox for me. Finding my voice. It was a very slow process for me. Um, a lot of start and stops. There were moments where I would think to myself, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm never going to pull this off. There were moments where I would spend an afternoon writing and I would think, oh, this is great. And then by the time I would go to bed, I would convince myself it was awful. So it's writing a book is a bit like being in a relationship. So you need to choose the story that you're telling wisely, because some mornings you're going to hate it, and some evenings you're going to love it. So it is a sort of a love-hate relationship. Once I felt like I had gone back, so I wrote the book, I put it away for about a year, came back to it and just began to revise. And when I felt like I had enough, I felt the story was solid enough to begin to query. I started to query agents, and I was fortunate. So I have an agent, but the interesting story is that my agent, when it was all said and done, didn't sell the book. I was out on submission during a very challenging time. We had just gone into shelter in place,
Mm-hmm.
and the South was not being looked at positively. If you recall, there was there was a lot of social unrest
Mm-hmm.
during shelter in place. So I felt like, my career as a Southern writer would never begin. And I thought to myself for a little while that Southern fiction just might be dead.
Yeah.
So a year passed, and I had a conversation with my agent, and I said, look, I'm not getting any younger. If I need to get this book out into the world, I need to begin to build a readership. So I'm gonna, with your permission and blessing, I'm gonna start to query smaller presses, and that's what I did. And I got a really good response, and um, Moonshine Co. reached out and offered me the deal, and that's how the book made its way out into the world.
So from the time you signed with Moonshine Press to the book having its pub day, how long was that?
So I had a slightly longer wait than usual. It was longer than 12 months. I think from the time I signed the book until the time that it made its way out in the world, I think it was maybe 16 months or so.
Mhm.
It was a little bit of a wait.
When I tell people that that's fast in publishing terms, they don't believe it, because when you tell someone you've signed a publishing deal, they're like, oh yeah, where can I buy your book? And you're like, well, it's got to go through a lot of edits. It's going to take a while.
At least, yeah. So once you sign on, I think it's quick if you can have a book out to the world within a year of signing.
Yeah. So we've got a Facebook user. It's Donna. She says, I am a big believer in manifesting your goals. I agree with that.
Agreed.
So let's talk a little bit more about writing. And again, we've got a lot of aspiring writers out there. What is your biggest tip that you could give to someone who is just starting out, or maybe they're getting ready to start, looking for a publisher or looking for an agent?
So for those individuals that have written something that are looking to either send the book to presses that don't require agents, or that they want to query an agent, um, I think that the most important advice I could give anyone is, don't compare your own writing journey with the journey of others. It will only, it's maddening. So your writing journey is unique to you. Don't compare yourself to others. I think that that's one of the things I work really hard at, is just being very grateful for all the wonderful things that happen to the community around me, sending out that positive energy, and just knowing that what's meant to happen for me will happen for me.
And that was one of the things I was so surprised about when I, kind of found the writing community, is just how positive and how embracing and loving this community really is. Just like what you were saying, don't compare yourself. And that's one of the best parts about being a writer is finding this community.
Agreed. I would say that 99.5% of my experiences with other writers has been lovely. It is a wonderfully warm and supportive community. I'm fortunate to live in Atlanta where there are a lot of writers. I joke and say that you can't throw a rock in Atlanta and not hit a writer. So there are a lot of us, but a wonderful, wonderful supportive community. And I'm fortunate to be a part of it. That's really all that I wanted ultimately, was to be a writer and to have just a little seat at the table, to be part of it, and to be inspired by brilliant, gifted writers. I have always felt that you need to surround yourself with individuals who are more talented and much smarter than you, because that's the only way that you're going to grow.
Absolutely. I love that. And before we're getting ready to wrap things up in just about a minute or two, but just since you've been a published author for about a year now, correct?
A little over a year.
Yeah.
I published 2/22/22.
Oh, well, that's got to be some kind of positive number. I don't
So.
know numerology well, but what's been the biggest surprise or the biggest change in your life?
I don't. It's funny. I wonder. I wonder how I would have taken the having a book count in the world if I'd been a younger person. I think it happened when it was supposed to happen. I mean, more than anything, um, I'm grateful. I each and every day, I'm just overcome with gratitude, and I find the whole experience very humbling. Um, I think I just lost my train of thought. What did you ask me?
But also, you're a very busy.
What surprised me most? What
You're
surprised me most?
you're very much in high demand. I mean, you speak at writing conferences. Like, how did that come about? Did you actively seek that, or do people come to you?
It's a combination. When when the book was getting ready to come out to the world, I had no idea how it was going to be received. I didn't know what I was doing. I still don't completely know what it is that I'm doing, and it's a quick learning curve. Just the marketing aspect, the social media presence. So I'm fortunate. I think that my goal has always been to support other authors and send that love and positive energy into the universe. And I've been fortunate to meet some lovely people. And sometimes opportunities come in the most peculiar places. Invitations to come to the Clarksville Writers Conference. It's sometimes if you meet someone and you have a positive experience and someone asks for recommendations, they might pass your name along. So it comes a little bit of me reaching out and trying to make things happen, and then just being fortunate to have the universe open up and have opportunities available for me as well.
And Gail Priest just said, "You are very supportive, Robert. You and so are you, Hope. Thank you for saying that." And Patricia says, "Thank you so much for this interview. This has been a fantastic week, and I'm going to be sad to see you go, but we still have you for one more day. We have you tomorrow, and I can't wait to see what you're coming up with tomorrow. A lot of people are going to watch this later on, replay here on our Facebook page, and Robert will still, answer your questions. I'll answer questions, so feel free to keep posting. If you'll tag Robert, he'll be more likely to see it. Again, Robert, I know you are a busy, busy man, because I think you still have one more day of this conference. Am I correct?
Yeah, I'm going to go back and finish out the day. There's a lovely dinner this evening for the group, and one more day of conference tomorrow.
I love that. Well, again, we cannot thank you enough. Where can everyone find you on your social media and your website? Because I know people are going to want to follow. They're going to want to keep in touch with you.
Sure. So you can visit my website at robertlgwaltney.com, and all of the access to my social media. I spend the majority of my time on Facebook and Instagram. And of course, you can also contact me, email me through the website.
And can I just say, your website is lovely.
Thank you.
Done a beautiful job, because I'm on a lot of author websites just because of this, but you have a fantastic website. So everyone, I just wanted to remind you that I'm going to be here again next month. We're going to be doing July Author Take the Wheel, and I've got more information on that coming up. It's a book called Terra Nova. I think it is going to be a fantastic Author Take the Wheel. Again, Robert, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Okay. Goodbye, everybody. Until next time.